Welcome to Iron Vlog number 233, guys. Today I did some thinking about how much fuel it would take me to fly at the altitude, to reach the altitude where I would want to break the speed of sound. I haven't talked about this in a while, and if you're new to the channel, the plan is to put jet engines definitely on my back, potentially on my front. The idea is there should be enough that when those are all throttled up 100%, they should be able to hover with those. And then I will have a hybrid rocket motor on each hand and each foot. And then when those are all throttled up, I should also be able to hover on those. That's so there's a double redundancy so that you can land with either the rockets or the motors. So the rockets or the jet engines. Rocket motors or jet engines. So then the idea is hover and then either move forward and gain enough speed to fly, or just take off like a rocket and then get to going horizontal. But then once you're flying horizontal, the rocket motors will be completely turned off and just the jet engines will then take me up to a high altitude where it'll be easier to break the speed of sound because there'll be less drag through the air. I'll be carrying oxygen in the suit, or I'll probably have a compressor actually that compresses outside air and then pumps it into a little area that's at higher compression. That's how they work in airplanes. Anyway, come up to a high enough altitude where you could easily break the speed of sound. I'll also have a little bit of oxygen. I'll have a little bit of pure, like a fighter pilot. They have a compressed air system and they have like pure oxygen they can hit as well. I'll have both. I digress. Fly up to a high altitude, about 80,000 feet is what the Blackbird flew at. And the idea behind getting to that really high altitude is that there's a lot less friction due to air. And then turn the rocket motors back on, and those will allow me to break the speed of sound, and I'll turn them off, maybe turn back around to do another flight the other way, because anytime you break a record, you got to do it both directions. And then come back down, and then land with one of the two methods, or both methods together. And then if something were to happen, you'd have a redundancy. And there may be a triple redundancy, there may be some kind of plan if shit really goes downhill and everything turns off, like maybe actually landing like an airplane on my stomach, which would be real sketch. Or potentially having a parachute, but parachutes are really big, and probably not getting a parachute on this bitch. The energy it'll theoretically take to get up there is the potential energy of the gravitational potential energy of me plus the suit, the weight of that at altitude. To get up that high. There's an equation here, but it's essentially, if I remember correctly, it is mass times the gravitational constant times your height. So you'll see that there's the mass of me being 300 pounds, and then the gravitational constant is 9.8 meters per second squared, and then height is 80,000 feet, and then those give me that many gallons of fuel, 1.660 times the jet engine efficiency, which we're assuming to be about 50%, and then the next one is the rate of fuel consumption at climb, and this is just a number I pulled directly off of fuel consumption for one of those jet cat engines. Ooh, except I should probably multiply it by the number of engines. I didn't think about that. So let's do times 2 on that. And then the amount of time, that's multiplied by the amount of time that it would take you to get to that altitude. So you have the rate of fuel consumption times the amount of time, and then you take that and add it to the potential energy. And in theory, that should give you, looks like just under 10 pounds of fuel to reach altitude, and then, well, to get to that altitude. And then the motors would be used to break the speed of sound. And obviously you'd want to have more fuel than that because you want to be able to land on the fuel as well. But you don't need a whole lot to land. I mean, you'd probably need a gallon maybe. Because the idea is you could just coast down. You keep the things at a lowest throttle possible, so just idle. So you don't have to turn them back on because that's kind of dangerous. So you keep them at idle. You'd glide down, and then you'll land propulsively like Elon Musk engines, rockets, which will be very efficient because it's just enough to stop you and then land you, which is no more energy than that. So it's not a lot of energy on top of that. So 10 gallons should get me to altitude. It's a lot of fuel. Seems doable. You could have an external fuel tank somewhere on the suit and then jettison it before you break the speed of sound and then land on a reserve tank. That's also possible. And then if it ends up not being feasible, you could also jump out of an airplane and do it. There's a couple of different ways to do this. I had one thing that I thought would be an interesting case study for this, is I learned today how to pick up rolls of carpet with really high efficiency, and do it, and after doing it a lot, and I did it one way, I'm like, oh, that was so much easier. And what you do is you pick up to where there's one corner on the ground, and then you put your chest on it with your hand out over here, and then you put your chest right in the center of gravity, so you just have to get down a little bit, then you stand up, and it just bumps it right up, and then you use your other two hands to plop it, and then right around the center of mass, which should be on your shoulder, and you kind of roll it up to your shoulder, and then you can walk with it. I thought that was interesting because essentially, like, that's kind of how this thing is working. You're bringing it up. So really all the energy that goes into that is just the gravitational potential energy that it gains going up. And then a little bit, there's not really a climb time. It's just the energy it takes multiplied by the inefficiency of your muscles. So human muscles are about 60% efficient, which is very close to the Carnot cycle, which is the theoretical limit of efficiency of a heat transfer engine, which everything is a heat transfer engine essentially. Even Teslas, they're heat transfer engines, except not really. They run at 100% efficiency, but the energy is generated in a heat transfer system in the power plant. So they on an electrical gradient, they're almost 100% efficient. But in a chemical, like in a heat gradient, they're close to the Carnot cycle because energy generators are close to the Carnot cycle because they're really big and highly efficient. Cars are terrible. They're like 40%. I don't know what it is at jet engines. I think they're a little bit more efficient than cars, but I could be wrong on that. If anyone knows and you look this up, comment below and tell me I'm wrong, and I'll be happy to change the numbers in here. There'll be a link to this thing, by the way, if you want to look at these numbers yourself. I open source all this kind of stuff. I'll put a link down below. That's what I came up today. I thought of that stuff while ripping up carpet, and I'm like, ooh, I should write this down and get some numbers to this thing. So, pretty cool stuff. I love you guys. Thanks for watching. Have a good one. Peace. By the way, I didn't mention, but I became a professional welder today. I got paid to go weld, and I welded on these big semi-trucks pull in, like when they go to in this case it was a Burlington coat factory, but when they come in to big box stores like that or whatever, malls, whatever, and they back up the 18-wheeler to it, and there's these two rubber things that they kind of can bump into, and then in the middle there's a big ramp thing that they can kind of get over the unevenness of all the thing. And I put a thing up on Craigslist saying I weld, and some guy hit me up, some contractor who was working on it and couldn't find a welder, and he was at the very end of his project, and he's like, "Can you come out and weld?" He's like, "I got a stick welder and I want you to run it." And I'm like, my rate's $80 an hour, which is pretty high, but he's like, "Yeah, we could do that for sure." I made $300 in 3 hours. It was pretty fucking awesome. A lot of stick welding. I'm really sore right now from all of the labor I've been doing, but I welded those things in there and got a lot of practice with stick welding. Actually, welds came out pretty good, except for some of the vertical ones. Those ones got a little rough. It's a lot harder to do. I actually did a little research on the job, oh fuck, how do I do this? And I learned that that's one of the most difficult welds to do, other than TIG welding. And then there's vertical stick welding, which is they use in structural areas a lot for I don't know, skyscrapers and shit. But it's pretty cool. I have some video. I'm gonna leave you guys with that.